Monday. Hope you had a good weekend and ready to start off the week. And we are going to talk Cowboys today. Typically, once the season gets going, every Monday will be a Cowboys Monday. We'll talk Rangers on Wednesday, and Friday will be a grab bag. Plus, we'll have interviews scattered throughout the week. We're going to chat with Mike Bassick this week, talk some baseball. We're going to talk with Bobby Belt this week to talk some Cowboys. We'll have conversations coming up in subsequent weeks with Brian Broaddus and Jeff Kavanaugh. Emily Jones will join us again on the baseball side, Eric Nadell and Matt Hicks. We'll also have our Broadcasters Roundtable this week. If that's something that you've been interested in, we do it every other week. Plus, on Wednesday, just banging with the nosebleed seats, we're going to continue our sports and food discussions. So be on the lookout for all that stuff here on this channel over the coming weeks. We'd really appreciate if you would subscribe, like, comment, and really most of all, I love interacting with people. I love having the conversation. Right now, I'm simply staring into a little dot on my computer, so I'm kind of just talking to this green light. But the more people that get eyes on this and ears, the more people I'm talking to. So I'd really appreciate if you would consider sharing this link and whatever else you might consume if you enjoy it with your friends. All right, so going to talk Cowboys first, though. I want to quickly touch on the college football situation. Since we last spoke, a few conferences have now either eliminated college football in the fall, like the Ivy League, or like the Big Ten and the Pac-12. They've said, hey, no, we're not playing any non-conference games. We're going to stick to a conference schedule. What sort of an impact does that have? I mean, I guess, fewer games would mean fewer opportunities to get infected. So does it help? I guess, yes, technically it does. But is it going to make a significant difference? No. To me, getting rid of the conference games, what it does is maybe just delay the start of the season for a lot of these teams, since typically the conference games are at the very beginning. That's not always the case, but that's typically how it is. So maybe that's what they're trying to do and create more opportunity, more time for a vaccine or for trends to start going in a more favorable direction. Or it's just the first sign that, hey, we're not going to have football this year, which I think is, very likely, at least, in the fall. The NFL, I think, is a little bit of a different story. I still I'm skeptical that the Cowboys and Rams play on September 13th to start the season, but I just don't see college football happening this fall. And we've never really before seen a lack of unity amongst the Power 5 conferences, and I assume that they're all going to eventually be lockstep. I will say this, though. Let's just, under the hypothetical that college football does happen this fall, I would advocate for expanding the playoff, and it doesn't have to be permanent. I know some people out there like it at 4 teams. I personally am an advocate for 8 teams. I don't think it's going to water down the regular season. I still think it creates a ton of excitement in the regular season. Maybe it does give a little more leniency for one loss, but still, if you lose that second game, you're probably out of there. And for some teams that are trying to work from the outside in, so not your Alabamas or LSUs or the Blue Bloods who we just kind of automatically throw into the playoffs. Maybe you're an Iowa State. We're throwing Iowa State in there. One loss and you're out, in all likelihood. So I still think it creates excitement, and I don't think anyone's ever complained about an additional round of playoffs. I don't think we're going to sit there during the round of 8 and be like, gosh, this is so not fun. I hate these awesome matchups and these, win or go home football games. No, we're going to love it. Trust me, we're going to love it. We're going to pay for it. If you want to go to the games, we're going to bet on it. You got to follow the money, and the money's going to be there. Sponsors are going to eat it up. As fans, we're going to enjoy the heck out of it. I don't know if that's a long-term solution that's in the cards right now. I'd certainly advocate for it, but if you're not going to have non-conference play, that's going to make it a little bit harder to compare, across conferences. So I think the best solution is to expand the playoff to 8 teams and give a little more leeway if, in fact, some conferences are going to have a season without conference play, or maybe it turns out that once the season starts, we're talking about all conferences without conference play. All right, but I want to get to the Cowboys here. Let's first start with one article on ESPN, then we're going to get to another, then we're going to talk Dak. There's an article from Bill Barnwell that just came out that basically ranks the offensive weapons for every team. And, the parameters here, contract value doesn't matter, so it's not about best values. It's only about this season, so we're not looking at the future. And Bill even identifies that in his rankings, wide receivers matter more than other positions because the league considers wide receivers more valuable than other positions. Obviously not quarterback, but running backs, tight ends, etc., based on the way they pay them. The top 10 multi-year deals for wideouts, as Bill identifies, are worth an average of $17.5 million per season. The top 10 running back deals are under $10 million. The top 10 tight end deals under $8 million. So a little more weight is put on receivers. And then top-level talent he identifies is worth more than depth. So just because you got 5 average pass catchers doesn't make your weaponry better than if you've got 2 studs and then 3 duds. All right, so as I've given you that criteria, I want you to, in your head, think, well, where do the Cowboys rank? Are the Cowboys just in the top 10? Are they top 5? Are they top 3? Are they maybe number 1? I mean, remember, we're talking 2 1,000-yard receivers, 2 1,100-yard receivers in Cooper and Gallup, and the exciting unknown of CeeDee Lamb to go along with Zeke Elliott, and then you got Blake Jarwin. I'll tell you that in the NFC East, the Redskins rank 32nd. Not a surprise because other than Terry McLaurin, they don't have anyone worth mentioning who can catch a football. You want to continue in the NFC East, the Redskins are by far and away the worst among them. I think it's, it could be an interesting question, who's ranked more favorably, the Eagles or the Giants? Because remember, it's not like the Eagles have a ton of awesome pass catchers either. And as we continue to go down the list, you're kind of waiting. Both of those teams, Eagles and Giants, are in the top half of the NFL. And Saquon Barkley, definitely a part of that. You got with the Eagles, you do have Zach Ertz. The Eagles check in at number 10. They are actually ranked less favorably than the New York Giants. Where are the Giants ranked? Well, the Giants are 7th. They got Saquon Barkley, to help out Daniel Jones in the backfield, and then Evan Engram, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. They consider that group better than the Eagles group. So 3 teams in the NFC East in the top 10. We haven't gotten the Cowboys so far. You've had enough time to kind of think in your head where they're going to finish. The Cowboys check in at number 3. And how about this? Their 2018 rank, this was the year they went in with Allen Hurns as their number 1. They ranked 30th. Last year they entered the season in these rankings, ranked 6th. This year ranked 3rd. Obviously, the participants in this conversation, but the Cowboys are considered the team with the 3rd best weaponry. The Browns ranked 2nd, and then the Chiefs ranked number 1. There was also a ranking that ESPN put out, a series of rankings in which they anonymously surveyed executives, players, and coaches to come up with the top 10 at each position group, and they're going to continue to do this for the defensive positions. For the offensive position groups, tight end, quarterback, running backs, receivers, offensive tackles, and interior O-linemen, the Cowboys had representation in all but the tight ends. And that makes sense because Blake Jarwin, while we, you and I might think, hey, good things are coming for Blake Jarwin, he hasn't proven it enough yet to be in the top 10. So it makes sense there, but it just goes to show the Cowboys are loaded with the offensive weaponry. I think on the defensive list, the only person who I'm confident gets in the top 10 is Tank Lawrence. I think depending on what sort of leniency and forgiveness the players, execs, and coaches give Leighton Vander Esch with his injury last year, I think he could sneak into the top 10. I'm not sure if the Cowboys get anyone else in the top 10 for any of the defensive positional groups, but we'll wait and see. But the reason I'm bringing this up is the receivers ranking stood out to me. So Amari Cooper made it in the top 10. He checked in at number 10. I think there's a discussion, not, heated daily discussion, but it does come up when considering Amari Cooper amongst whether it's Cowboys fans or fans as to whether or not he, fill in the blank, whether he loves football, whether he's got the drive, whether, he's got that son of a gun you want, whether he cares, whether he's got the intensity. There are a lot of different ways to characterize it, but a lot of it is under the umbrella of whether he is going to give you his all, that cliche. Whether, he's going to be the guy who is going to rise up when it's tough. He's going to, just be the guy you can rely on 16, 17, 20 games out of the year. And there are a few things that, I think sparked that conversation from last year. One, you have the Eagles game in which he's on the sideline and appears to be just fine with it. Now, again, there's more to the story than what's on the surface. You don't judge a book by its cover. However, we do. We know we're not supposed to, but we do. An exciting cover jumps out at us. Well, I think we would have maybe more enjoyed Amari Cooper yelling on the sidelines to try and get his tush back in the game. Now, again, like I said, and people have come out and said, hey, there's more to the story. It's not like he was just sitting there being like, oh, whatever, biggest play of the year, doesn't matter. But then the other side of it is he struggled against the better cornerbacks. And that fuels the sentiment that some people have of, well, when the going gets tough, Amari Cooper just gets out of there. And there are people who believe that in Oakland. I'm not personally offering an agreement on that. I'm not sure. I'm confused about Amari Cooper because I do think that some of the suggestions are a little unfair. I think some of them might be fair, though. Here's what stood out to me. What I think, maybe what you think. We have these opinions, that's great. But we all know that in these cases, people inside of the building, they know the real story, right? And, they're often the ones that are going to jump to a player's defense. We've had some people jump to Amari's defense. I wouldn't say across the board. But these people talk. And I thought this quote from someone who's listed as one NFL personnel man was a little compelling. He said, quote unquote, there's something holding him back, him being Amari Cooper. There's something holding him back. He was the best receiver on the market, and I didn't want to sign him. Think about that. Here's what stands out to me. Like I said, people talk. People in the industry talk. It's no different than your industry or my industry. Outside the walls, there might be one perception, but inside the walls, we know, we talk, we share opinions. I know how people feel about various people and compared to maybe how people on the outside feel. Amari Cooper's not a role player. He's not a guy you're just going to give, $3 million to. So that NFL personnel man definitely did his due diligence beyond film and beyond whatever internal scouting he had. He obviously talked to people, whether it's people he knew with the Cowboys or the Raiders or maybe one of his lieutenants, someone they knew. There was a conversation, and what this quote tells me is that there are clearly those, and I believe with the Cowboys, because I think that you would probably most ask the most recent bosses of that player. There are people at the Cowboys who also aren't sure about him, because if they offered a ringing endorsement and said, no, this guy's awesome. I know what perception is, this guy is awesome. Then, maybe that opinion is a little different. I think it's an interesting thing, and I'm curious to have another full season of Amari Cooper to see what we can learn about him, because I do think he's an interesting guy. And I'm not sure where I stand on this debate yet, but I do think that quote was interesting. All right, let's get to Dak Prescott. This is a big week for Dak. Obviously, we got to talk Dak. The deadline is 3 o'clock Central this Wednesday. 3 o'clock Central. That's the deadline the Cowboys and Dak have to reach a long-term extension. Otherwise, both sides have to table talks until 2021. Dak, right now, franchise tag $31.4 million. He signed the tag in late June. It was issued to him prior to that. Here's what we know about the next few days. All right, first of all, what are the sticking points? Well, it does appear that the sticking points or the sticking point is the length of the deal. The Cowboys would like a 5-year deal. Dak and his side have asked or campaigned for a 4-year deal. Is that the only sticking point? It doesn't seem as if money at this time really is one, but in fairness, the negotiations haven't really been public. We have speculated. We have made them public, but it's not like there's been a ton of public comments from CAA, certainly on Dak's side, and we've had a little more on the Cowboys side. If there's a deal by July 15th, that means that the Cowboys can maybe better forecast their salary cap moving forward, and they probably will get, depending on the structure of the deal, some cap relief for this year if they'd like it. I think they can get upwards of $10 million. Dak, of course, would be the highest paid Cowboy, if that's something that you like to track. If there's no deal, as we mentioned, they got to wait until next year to sign that extension, and Dak would kind of do the Kirk Cousins thing and play under the franchise tag and bet on himself. Now, the Cowboys could tag him again for the next season, but that tag is going to probably be closer to $40 million. All right. Does the franchise tag usually lead to a long-term deal? Rob Phillips on DallasCowboys.com looked at the Cowboys' history when it comes to this. And in their history, typically, yes, they've given out the tag 7 times. Tank Lawrence twice, Dez, Anthony Spencer, Ken Hamlin, and Flozell Adams. Everyone but Spencer eventually got an extension, and Bryant and Hamlin got their deals done the same year as the tag, which is what the Cowboys are attempting to do with Dak. How likely is an agreement? I still am under the impression that deadlines make deals. I think a deal as important as this can come together quickly. It's not like they need 24 hours to iron out the details if both sides are serious about making this happen. So I do think that a deal gets done. I think in typical Cowboys fashion, it's going to go down to the wire. And so I believe that Dak will be playing with a long-term contract this year. However, I'd say that my confidence level is at 55%. In previous weeks, previous months, I had it much higher. I think at one point I said 90%. So obviously I might not be the best authority. I know I'm not the best authority at knowing this, but I still tend to think that a contract gets done. I think deadlines make deals, and I think there's just too many benefits for both sides for this to get worked out, for it to come and go without a deal, that Wednesday deadline at 3 o'clock. All right, so there you go. That's some Cowboys chatter for you today. Again, we'll talk Cowboys throughout the week, but typically Mondays will be dedicated to Cowboys to get into the rhythm of a Cowboys Monday during the season. And then, of course, we're going to cover the Cowboys, the Rangers, the Mavericks, the Stars, the world of sports, bringing you conversations, interviews, commentaries like this. So hope you enjoy. Again, share, comment, like, subscribe. Would appreciate any and all. Until we chat next, it's going to be tomorrow, conversation with Mike Bassick. Hope you have a great start